Hello everybody. What I want to do today in this video is to spend a little bit of time talking about the scientific method in practice. So last class what we talked about the scientific method, I went through these 6 steps on how we can use statistics to develop, test, reach a conclusion regarding a hypothesis. And what I want to do in this video is to talk to you for a little bit about how I, as a researcher studying the social sciences, finds a research hypothesis. I'll talk a little bit about data. I'm going to do that in a separate video. And then I want to talk to you about the mechanics of writing and how I write. And then maybe give you some suggestions for programs that you can use. Since we're at the beginning of the semester, it seems like a good time to evaluate how we do things. So, being the new school year, some of you might have new computers. I just want to go ahead and talk to you a little bit and show you a program that I use that'll be helpful. So, these are the steps that we talked about in class. And what I want to start with is this one, developing a research hypothesis. Specifically, the process of doing a literature review. Now, you might have heard this term before, or it might be new to you. A literature review to me is not a paper necessarily. It's not an annotated bibliography. For me, a literature review is doing the research that I need to understand what the conversation around a question or a topic is. And I'm going to start by showing you how it is that I look for new research and new questions to ask. So I'm going to get out of this for a second, and I'm going to go start with the Coastal website. And what I would like you to do and get into the habit of doing is actually using the library to start doing research. What I don't want you to do is to just open up a browser and start Googling or whatever your search engine is. What I want you to do is I want you to think about this in terms of, okay, where can I get quality information about a topic for my university class? Well, your professors, they use literature published in academic journals and books. That's what the library is for. When you go to Coastal's webpage, look for this 3-line thing. I've heard it called the hamburger. So click on the hamburger, and we're going to go to the library. From the library's page, right here on front, we have options. We can search the library's catalog, but I want to give you some advice in going straight looking for journal articles. I'm going to click on Database Finder. Now, if you haven't done this before, you can look by subject. So I'm a political scientist. Let's see, do they have it? Yep, here's political science, here's public health, here's communications, here's theater, Intel, national security. I think we had some exercise sports science people in the class. You can do it by subject. Let's click on public health. I don't know anything about public health. I'm not sure which one of these is the preferred one for your field. Feel free to ask your professor. It's probably something like Medline. But I'm going to go back, and I'm going to find a database called JSTOR. You'll notice I've actually got it bookmarked up here in my browser. JSTOR, click on J. JSTOR stands for Journal Storage. I remember as an undergraduate going to my library at the University at Albany, and for some journals they would actually have to fill out a form. Some worker goes and disappears into the basement for 20 minutes, and then they come back with your journal. They didn't leave them up on the shelves, they had them packed away. What JSTOR does is JSTOR digitizes journals and then puts them online so that it is available to you. Now you'll notice I had to sign in to my library account. I'm off campus right now at home, so I had to use the library login to let them know that I should have access to these materials. So here's JSTOR, and the great thing about JSTOR is you can search for anything. So I've got a conference coming up. It's called the Midwestern Political Science Association, and by October I got to figure out what I'm going to write on. I got to come up with a paper topic idea, and I'll have until mid-April to write the paper. So I'll have a good 6 months to actually write the paper, but I got to come up with an abstract, and I have to tell the conference organizers what it is that I want to present on. Now, my current research has been on judicial elections. So let's just do a search for judicial elections. You might be interested in obesity. You might be interested in, do video games cause violence? All right, whatever you're interested in. Let's just do a general search to start. And you'll notice that I've got 40,000 results. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to narrow this down. Now, I know a lot about judicial elections. I've written on it before. I just want to see the newest stuff. So I'm just going to look from 2008 to 2017, and I'm going to narrow it down that way. Okay, now I'm down. Did that work? I don't think that worked. So we do it again. From 2008 to 2017. Update. Alright, I went from 40,000 to 5,000. And I only want to look at journals, so I'll update the results again. Alright. So now I'm still at 4,911. What can I do now? Well, I can keep scrolling through these, or you'll notice that I can also narrow it down by subject. I can look for just articles that come from political science journals. That's going to get me down to 1,900. Let's go ahead and do that. I can also do law. Law is going to give me a lot of law review articles, so in my experience I try not to do law right away. So let's go ahead and do that and narrow it down. So there's my 1,900 articles. Now you'll notice that some of these articles are book reviews. So there's a book review of a book called In Defense of Judicial Elections. I might want to remember that, because I might want to get that book and see if our library has it. Here's a research note on empirical examinations of judicial elections in Ohio and Michigan. Now, I know why they wrote this article. Ohio and Michigan are strange. They use a partisan primary but a nonpartisan general election. So it gives people who are coding judicial elections a pause on what you should code them as. Here is an article on money cannot encourage participation, campaign spending, and roll-off in low visibility judicial elections. I'm interested in this because I think that television advertising in judicial elections might actually increase participation. So what I need to do now is I need to, as I'm doing this search, start saving the articles. And this is where we're going to take a pause. I'm going to go away from JSTOR for a second because I want to show you a tool that you can use for your academic study. And this is the one tool that when I show students what it can do, that they actually thank me for it. So this is my my first week of class. I'm actually giving you the best thing I have right here at the beginning. There's a program called Zotero. Zotero is completely free, and what it is it's a reference manager. It's a piece of software that you can download to your computer. They also have an online sort of repository too, but I like the having it on your computer version. And It's available for Mac, Windows, and Linux if that's what you use. And you can download Zotero, and what it is a program that allows you to create a little project manager for your literature. So think of it as like Pinterest for academics. And I'm going to create a new project because I need to get working on this paper for Midwest. I'm going to call it Midwest 2018, and I've saved that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these articles that I find as I'm surfing around and reading through the literature, and I'm going to save them to that Midwest folder. Now I've already downloaded Zotero, and I've downloaded the actual program, and I use Chrome most often as my internet browser. And I've downloaded the what do they call them here, like the plugin. Okay, just go to Zotero's website and follow through and make sure you download it for your, let's see, for your computer and for your here's the installation guide. Alright, just take 20 minutes to figure out how it works. Alright, so let's go back to JSTOR, and I'm really interested in this journal article, so I'm going to select it. Okay, here's the page for it. Now I can do a couple of different things. Right, this button up here says save to Zotero, and it'll save the web page, but I don't want to save the web page. I actually want to save the article. So I'm going to click download PDF, and yes, I accept. I will do whatever you want in order to get access to this article. And here it is, downloaded the article as a PDF. I don't have time to read it right now because I'm not in reading mode, I'm in collection mode. I'm going to go back to this little button that is now in my browser that says save to Zotero. Hit that button, and you'll notice that right now I had a little window here popping up, and it said save to Zotero. So that if I go back, I can see that it saved this article in the folder that I just created. Right, and here it is. Here's my article. Okay. And I can take notes on the article. I can tag it if I want to organize them. Alright. I can also edit this information here, where I got it from. Right, here's the URL, so I can go back to it. Alright. If I right click on it here, right, view online, show in my library. Alright, so now I've got that article. I'm going to go back to my JSTOR search. Okay, and I'm going to go back to my list, and I'm going to think of look for more about this idea of information and voters, and I'm just going to keep looking. Here's an article here, the impact of high visibility contests for U.S. state court judgeships, partisan voting in nonpartisan elections. That's interesting. I should probably grab this one too. Go ahead and download that. Yeah, I'll download the PDF. Alright. Alright. And I can keep going. New style elections, the seniority matter, effects of campaign activity on legitimacy. Right? I just want to collect a bunch of articles, so I'm just going to go down and I'm going to keep looking through this, and I'm going to keep saving them in Zotero. Now, one of the great things about Zotero is later on, when I'm actually writing my paper, I can use Zotero to create the citations and the references, and I'll do a much more detailed separate video on this. So I'll just quickly show you how you can do this. This will be great. So I'm sitting here typing. I've got words from an article, and I want to insert a citation. Zotero has an add-in for Word as well. And I want to insert a reference. I'm sorry, you probably can't see these buttons. You get used to it once you actually put it into your computer. And it asks me, how do you want to set this up? Do you want to use APA? Do you want to do the Chicago Manual of Style? You can actually, as you get into this, you can download other citation styles. I am going to use the American Political Science Association style. And here it asks me, well, what citation do you want to put in? Right? And let's do that again, just so I can walk you through it. I'm going to insert a citation. I like to use the classic view because it actually goes and looks like the little mini Zotero. I'm going to click OK. And now it's added the citation using the style for the American Political Science Association that I selected. And I'll keep typing, and if I want I can add another one. So go back to add-ins. I'm going to add another citation. Let's see. Let's do this different one. Click OK. Alright. And now when I'm done with my paper's all done, I need to actually create a works cited page. I click a button in Zotero, and here we go. It actually took those citations that I just put and it spit it out. Now if I was smarter, I would have done a separate page for my words cited and then hit the button. But again, quick demo, just want to tell you about this Zotero thing. I'll do more with this later in the semester as we get closer to actually writing papers. But I just wanted to tell you about it. You should start playing with it now, download it, and start using it and practice with it. And of course, if you have any questions, you can always ask me in class or stop by my office hours. So that's Zotero. Zotero's great. Go back to JSTOR. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. That's how I'm going to find literature and understand my topic at hand. I'm going to go through looking for a very general search. I'm going to see who's written books, what some of the more recent articles are about, and I'm going to collect them. I'm going to hoard them as much as possible. I'm going to download the journal articles. I'm going to create a little reading list for myself. And then when it's time, after I've digested some of these articles and thought about them, I'm going to read them and try to find a question that I have after reading these articles. So let's look at this Streb and Frederick article about campaign spending and roll-off in low visibility judicial elections. And one of the things that they do in this article is they look at what are known as intermediate appellate courts. So the courts that are between a trial court and a Supreme Court, the ones that are in the middle. Now these courts, they have elections in some states, but they're not as popular as the high court elections. And when you think about, if you're from a state that has judicial elections at the local level for trial courts, those ones can be contentious as well because, well, they're the judge you're going to see when you get a speeding ticket, or they're the judge that gets known because of how they ran that murder trial. Intermediate appellate courts, because they hear appeals, they're not quite as visible as high courts or trial courts. So what this article did was we examined the impact of campaign spending on voter roll-off in contested races for intermediate appellate courts between 2000 and 2008. They claim that in contrast to other types of elections, combined candidate spending in these races had no effect on ballot roll-off. Now, if I'm thinking about writing a paper about how the differences in campaigns can promote participation of citizens, I think they've made a mistake. I think they've made a mistake because they look at candidate spending. They look at the amount of money that is spent. But I think what's more important is how they get their message out there, what they spend their money on. And I think that you can spend a lot of money and not get your message out, but you could also spend a lot of money and get your message out by spending it on a ton of television advertising. So if I had data on television advertisements, which I do because that's something that I write in, I might want to look at the number of advertisements that are aired rather than how much money gets spent. Because spending money in elections in the state of Pennsylvania, which has media markets like Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, can be more expensive than spending money in a state like Nebraska, which doesn't have a very large media markets. Okay, so I'm going to read this article and I'm going to see how many times I say to myself, I wonder what about this? Right? I wonder if what would happen if they looked at their independent variable differently. I wonder what would happen if they included this control variable, or why didn't they include situations where intermediate appellate court people are former trial court judges, right? So I don't mean to bore you with the judges stuff, but again, it's what I study, so it would be something that I would look at and try to say, all right, are they doing this right? Is there some other question that it gets raised because of this type of article? And that's how I'm going to find my research question for the article that I write for my Midwest paper. I'm going to develop my research hypothesis by actively doing a literature review, by doing some research into what's going on, and I'm going to get that literature review by using the academic sources that are available to me, like JSTOR. There are other databases out there, Academic Search Premier, LexisNexis. Basically what you should do is you should do two things. One, talk to your professors in your major and ask them where they get their research from. And two, you should consult the listing that the library has available by field. And if you would have clicked on political science, you would have saw that JSTOR was on the list. But JSTOR wasn't on the list for public health. So JSTOR is probably not the best recommendation if you're a public health major. Other thoughts that I have about developing a research hypothesis? Well, you need to choose something that is interesting to you. And if you don't choose something that's interesting to you, it's gonna feel like busy work. It's gonna feel like the worst thing in the world to do. And so what I tell my students is to think of a puzzle. Think of a game. Think of a question that's out there that you are actually interested in. And it can be anything. You would be surprised at the very small things that academics and professors study and become world famous for. I mean, absolutely the smallest things. There are some people in the biology that study a particular type of mealworm, and that's it. Or there are people in biology that study mushrooms that grow, I don't know, in a forest on an oak tree, right? We as academics, we can be very, very specialized, and we can become one of the 5 people in the world that study that subject. as an undergraduate, there must be something that interests you. There must be something that you would actually enjoy learning more about. If people out there like Sudoku or chess, there are different types of games, there are different types of research questions. I am sure you can find something that interests you so that doing the work of a literature review, where you're actually asked to read, isn't that complicated. Isn't that much work so much as something that keeps your interest. Now, I can make a joke here about how, that's why we have a comm major, because people like to watch TV. That's why we have a music major, because people like to play music. But I won't make that joke, because that's too easy. Alright. So, the point of this video, again, is to talk to you about developing a research hypothesis. I use JSTOR. You should use whatever's available in the library. You should also consider, at this time, getting used to using Zotero. I'm going to put the link to Zotero and how you can get that on your computer and download it. See, Chrome connector, Zotero for Windows, and then plugins for your browsers. This is what you want right here. You want this page, download things, get it going on your laptop before you start a project. I'm gonna ask people in class, has anybody downloaded Zotero yet? Has anybody created a library in it? You can delete things too, by the way. If you read something you're like, yeah, this doesn't make any sense, you can go ahead and delete things out. You can keep different folders for different papers that you're writing. This is something that I use. There are other reference management software programs out there. Let's get out of this. Let me show you another one that's free. It's called Mendeley. Mendeley is another reference manager. When Mendeley started, their thing was that you could be on like the computer in the library, and what you could do is save things into Mendeley. The reason that I like Zotero is because right off the bat it had the things that were more important to me, which was plugging into Word, a separate standalone program that I could keep on my laptop, and I didn't really use the sort of extension, saving to a web account kind of Dropbox looking setup that Mendeley had. But you can go ahead and take a look at Mendeley. There's another program that is a commercial program, one that you would pay for, and that's known as EndNote. EndNote can be a little bit expensive. They have a free trial, and when I was in graduate school I used EndNote because we had a license for it at Michigan State. EndNote was great because it could also serve as a version of Google. EndNote the program that I used in graduate school, actually connected to the Library of Congress. So that way, even if you didn't have a book in your library to download the citation information, you could go to the Library of Congress's website database and it would actually work. So let's see, EndNote 8, $250 to download, and for students, it looks like it's a little shady by going to a third-party retailer, and the student version appears to be $114. Again, if you've got If you've got money to burn, I guess you could use EndNote, but since I've been at Coastal, I found that Zotero is actually just as good as EndNote. Like I said, because it plugs into your Word, it allows you to download straight from a browser. The other thing about Zotero that I'm going to mention is that you don't have to just download PDFs. You can do web pages as well. I'm going to go to the Brennan Center, which is a great website for information on judicial elections. I'm going to search. They have a website known as Buying Time. Okay. And one of the things that I do is I like to save these web pages of the state breakdowns because it actually has some data for me. So in Kansas in 2016, they break down who spent money on judicial ads, and there were two interest groups, Kansans for Fair Courts and Kansans for Justice, and they spent money, let's see, $2 million on these advertisements. So if I want to save this website because it has data, I can go ahead and click on Zotero. Oh, it's because I closed it. That's my fault. Man. There we go. Let's try that again. Make sure your Zotero is open when you're saving things. There. And you can see it's going to save this web page for me, so that I'll have this data. If the website should go down, or I can work with it offline. Okay. So that's my sales pitch for Zotero. And in this short video, I just want you to think about your literature review and finding research questions as a process. And one of the things that I don't want you to do is I don't want you to expect your professors to tell you what you're going to write your paper on. If you come to me and say, Dr. Wood, I don't know what I'm going to write my paper on, I'll tell you right now, you're going to write your paper on judicial elections, because that's what I'm interested in. And so I'm going to make you write a paper on what I'm interested in. You might actually want to write a paper on what you're interested in. Because again, you're going to be asking the question, you're going to be collecting the data, analyzing it, drawing the conclusion, and talking to us. So I'm going to put this link to Zotero up, and remember that your first use of the internet to find sources should not be Google. It should be the library, and you should sign in and try JSTOR if it's appropriate for your field. If not, find one that is appropriate for your field. So this was a little short video on what a literature review is and how mechanically I do it. Future videos will be more about the mathematics, to walk you through different examples, but since we're talking about the scientific method, I really did want to talk to you about how it is that you develop a research question. And what I do is I read. I want to know what other people are working on. I want to know what the conversation is in the journals. I want to know what people are presenting at conferences. That's a little bit more professor level than student level, but I need to know what people are talking about so that I can join the conversation. And doing a literature review and doing research on my subject to see what people are writing about, that's how I can figure out what I'm interested in and what I'm going to write about, where my question's going to come from. So that's it for now. After this video, you might go back, take a second look at chapter 1 in your textbook, and go ahead and move on and take the section exercise. The section exercise is going to focus exclusively on the textbook, but maybe a question on Zotero would be good for the midterm. Thanks for watching.